Hey everyone, welcome back to another session here with Fresh Dental Shadowing. Today we have Dr. Messer and Ms. Perry. They are from admissions at the Dental College of Georgia at Augusta University. And whenever you guys are ready, you can take it away.
You ready? So I guess I'll start by saying welcome. We look forward to hearing from you and answering any questions you might have. So please let us know what questions you might have as we go. Ms. Perry is going to give you a overview of the application process and what we look for. And so again, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I am Stephanie Perry, and I'm the Director of Student Admissions and Diversity here at the Dental College of Georgia. And I work very closely with Dr. Messer. And as I go through this presentation, I'm going to, say as much as I possibly can. I'm not even sure who our audience is. Is it Georgia residents? Is it people all over the nation? Is it people worldwide? We are a state school. So the majority of our accepted students are Georgia residents, but we're going to talk in general and tell you about what it means to be an in-state versus an out-of-state or international applicant as well. So as you know, May the 11th was the opening for the entering 2022 class, of those of you who want to be a part of that. So we're going to talk about that process. We're going to talk about how the COVID-19 pandemic affected things. And so we're just going to start as to what's going on in our office and what we've experienced thus far and what we're looking forward to in the next coming weeks. Okay, this is just a quick snapshot to acknowledge that we recognize that you guys have options when it comes to dental schools. There are currently 67 dental schools within the U.S., and all of them go through the ADEA, American Dental Education Association, and that's where you are supposed to go when you're starting on your application. For those of you that may be international, ADEA has also been on board with some of the Canadian schools. Canada has 10 dental schools, and they're not shown here on this map, but they attend, over the last 2 or 3 years, they have been attending the ADEA meetings. And also we are adapting the ADSAS application so it can be more useful to those that are applying to the Canadian dental schools. But for now, if you're in the US, these are the dental schools throughout the nation. As you can see, we're the only dental school in the state of Georgia. And we welcome those of you who may be residing in a state that does not even have a dental school. But clearly, some of them are public schools. You can see the ones that are in the blue circle represents the public schools. Then there are some that are the private schools. Then some of the private state-related schools. However, well, we've indicated where other schools are, but we do want you to pay closer attention to the Dental College of Georgia and what we have to offer. Oftentimes, I don't like to brag, but we are a great school. We're not even going to read it to you because you guys can read, but our dental school is pretty young. It's 51 years old. Last year, we celebrated our 50th anniversary. It was established in 1969. At that time, it was a 3-year program. That was about the time that they decided, oh my gosh, we need 4 years to get all of this information through the curriculum. So in 1973, they graduated 2 classes, the one that started in 69 and the one that started in 70. Then they got on track to make it in a 4-year curriculum. And as you can see, as you guys are getting ready to apply to dental school, the process can be an expensive one. So make sure that you've looked at it, you've looked into the schools where you could actually see yourself matriculating, places you want to go, because people at this dental school would be your new family, and that region will kind of be your new surroundings. So you got to be okay with being there for at least 4 years. So we have a lot of students who have never been to, who never lived in Georgia, but they visited Georgia, they have family in Georgia, and they even come for an interview as out of state and just like Georgia. And so therefore they have a good liking to our school. But as you can see, our students graduate and they're the top in the country. As you see, taking the National Board Part 1 and Part 2 over the last 5 years, they've scored very well in the licensures exam. They used to do great in coming out the gates with that. Our seniors, who we just graduated on last Friday, finished their national board maybe 2 weeks ago, and over that weekend, all of them passed the national board. So you got to look at your graduation rate, you know, and maybe that helps you in deciding which one of your schools. So based on this information, hopefully you look at it and think that Georgia is a place that you could possibly see yourself matriculating for 4 years. Then we have several dual programs. For those of you who are, we don't assume any high schoolers are on here, but if you are and you have like a 3.7 coming out of your high school and you know that dentistry is what you want to do, then you can look at our BS DMD program where you leave your high school, you do 3 years here at our undergrad campus, and now you get a work on a cell molecular, BS on a cell molecular track. During that 4th year, you would go through some logistics, take the DAT, maintain 3.6 in your undergrad program, then you automatically accepted into dental school. So that's a good thing to do. You don't have to worry about the other hundreds of applications that you get bogged down into that. So we've had our first class of BSDMD students just graduated. So we were pretty excited to see them start out as, you know, just 18-year-olds and coming through, and now they're dentists. We have maybe a third of our students go right into the residency programs, not just any residency program, but usually their first or second choice. We have state-of-the-art materials at our school. We'll talk about that in a further slide. We have a very diverse population of students. We have people who represent all nationalities and backgrounds. We have age range of our incoming freshmen, for instance, ranges from age 20 to 45. So some people, this is a second career. Some of them know they want to do this forever. And then we have a lot of involvement. We are a school that is very high on community service. And we'll talk about that further in another slide, but there are 21 different dental student organizations that our students are a part of. Forward. And some of these are the different programs. So I'm going to let Dr. Messer speak a little bit here because she's heard outside of administration, she loves research. So she can talk this where to go right over my head. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit about the research opportunities, whether it's a program or whether it's an organization that our students can be a part of.
So we also have at Augusta University a Master of Science in Oral Biology, Maxillofacial Pathology, as well as a PhD in those programs. And those can be combined with the DMD program if someone so chooses to do so. The master's is a minimum of 2 years of work. It can be worked into the dental curriculum if you're inclined to do so. PhD, you have to take time off from dental school and then do your research and then go back into your hand skills in the clinic. During your time working on your PhD, you do a half a day a week in the clinic in order to keep up your hand skills. We don't want you to lose those while you're working in the lab doing your research. As far as research opportunities, there's several things listed on here, from clinical research to biomaterials. We have, in the department I'm housed in, is oral biology and diagnostic sciences. We have everybody from pharmacologists to MDs to anatomists, cancer biology, a lot of different research opportunities. There's also several opportunities outside of the lab so educational type research. We also have an educational research program for those who are interested in academics in a future career. So there's a lot of opportunities, and it is what you make of it. One of the common questions we get about research is when to do it and how much time does it take and how long do you have to do it. It kind of depends on you. You're going to find your passion when you're in dental school, whether it's an organization like SNDA or ASDA, or if it's research. And you're not going to have time to do everything across the board. And so you're going to have to find your niche, what you're comfortable and what you're happy with. And if it's research, you can do it all 4 years. You can do it one summer, you can do it one break. It's just really up to you what you want to make it. So
I wanted to add a couple more things before we forward from this slide. And we have over here in the far left-hand corner, diagonal curriculum. And that's one of the unique things about Dental College of Georgia, that a lot of people, when they apply to us, say, this is the reason I'm applying, because of the early exposure that the students have to the clinical setting and also to the just the lab setting. So day 2 after orientation, they are in there. They have a toolbox. They have all the kits and they're learning. And why is that? Because it's set up traditional classroom didactic type in the morning. And then where do we go? We go into the simulation lab in the afternoon to do the hands-on component of what we learned this morning. So that's preparing them. And what is it preparing them for? For the sophomore block. And what sophomore block means is that as early as their third semester of dental school, so it's like the end of their first semester of their D2, second year, they actually are assigned their own patients. And so that is unique because at most dental schools, you start to treat your own patients during your junior year. And so our students are so good because they've had an additional semester or semester and a half in comparison to their counterparts at other dental schools. The other unique thing is in the far right hand corner is the faculty practice. And what that means, and you'll see on other slides, the number of our full-time faculty, just to make sure that they're just not teaching something that they learned years ago or something that they learned when they were in the military or they were in private practice. But as they're teaching our students and bringing them along the way, there are days of the week that are set aside for them to be in a specific designated area of the dental school where they treat their own private practice patients. They are usually assisted by assistants, dental assistants, or also some of our dental students will assist their faculty. So that gets them to run into how to treat each other, to see each other's colleagues and not just student and instructor. And the most important thing is now the dental student understands that my dentist who is teaching me or my faculty member or instructor practice dentistry on Monday or Tuesday and not teaching them something that they learned a decade or 20 years ago. Okay, quickly, we just want to go here. Like I said, we've been in existence. We started on a double wide trailer on the facility, which still sits on our land here at the medical college. But pretty quickly, we built the old dental school where I was. I think Dr. Messer and I both came here in 2001, and that's kind of where we were. And now they've, jazzed it all up, and they put a new, marketing and communications people in there. And so in June 2001, we have navigated over to the new dental college, where we reside now. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but we've been in this building since 2001. It's a great building. It has 5 stories. It has great state of the art. It has lots of clinics. We have clinics on each floor, a lot of research, a lot of things that goes on. However, it has no classrooms. And so just adjacent to the dental school, and we even built like a walk through one door and walk out another door, and you're in this Ed Harrison Education Commons building. It's mainly our medical school. That's where they are when they're not out in hospital treating patients, but we do utilize the classrooms there. And we don't need a lot of classrooms because we're in the clinic in our own school. So upstairs on the 3rd floor, they have a dental lounge where our students have television, piano, refrigerator, stoves, and microwaves and all that sort of thing in addition. So we utilize maybe 2.5 of those classrooms. So I always like to joke that we have like 1.5 dental school because we've utilized so much space in the Ed Commons building. That's the common name for it. For those of you who choose or rather stay on campus, it's a great thing, more specifically because of parking. If you're from one of those campuses where parking is a nightmare, that seems to have extended to our school as well. But some of our students say, I had my own home, I have a family, I've had my own apartment, and I choose not to stay on campus. So we do have Elm Hall for those of you who like the convenience to just walk in, about 25 paces, and you're right here at the dental school door. For those of you just living in Augusta, you can get a good 2-bedroom, 2-bath for $800, $900. So it's very reasonable to stay here. So the majority of our students choose to stay off campus. We kind of let that information come from the students. They've chosen a lot of paths, and Dr. Messer and I, we just stay at home with our own family. So therefore we don't know what it's like to live in the dorm. So they did a great job speaking with our incoming classes of what it's like to live in a dorm, or what it's like to live downtown near the dental school at a private apartment, or what it's like to own a home or rent a home or live in the next county, what's best for education. So all those things should be taken in consideration when choosing where you want to live, and so where you would get your education. You don't have a choice with that, but you have a choice as to where you live. And here's where we mention about our students being involved. And so, most of them are just great people in their hearts, but most of them are involved also because they know that it's part of their curriculum. So as a D1, 2, and 3, they are required to do 25 community service hours. And so they're always looking for things to do. As a senior, you know, because they got other obligations they have to do. I think they have to do 16 hours of community service hours. But I just added maybe 2 more organizations. So as you can see, outside of just being 45 hours of each week as a dental student, our students are involved in these 21 different dental student organizations auxiliary. So yes, Augusta University has a plethora of organizations, but these here are strictly for our dental students. And so they are very involved. Some of them have leadership in multiple areas. But as you can see, for those of you who wants to do academia, I think that was one that was new added. If they think they want to teach and be a part of it, that was newly added. And the one on environmental clubs. So those of you who want to just make sure that things are clean and around. So they've gone through the things to make sure that everything is proper with joining that as well. But we have students who want to be involved in pediatrics, those of you who wants to be in public health, those of you who are passionate about women in dentistry, those of you about just ASDA, because all the students are a member of ASDA. Those are pediatrics and Operation Smile. That's usually, they do different organizations raise money and send to other countries for students to get, for children to get cleft palates, that surgery. We have so many students interested in oral surgery. We have an oral surgery interest group. Some of them sit on the SGA. There are many that are on the SNDA, which is who's the group who does the impressions program. We're getting ready this Saturday because ASDA is doing an ASDA pre-dental day. If anybody's interested in that, send me their email very quickly. I can send you the link to sign up. And that's kind of like a day from a student's perspective as what it's like to be a dental student here. So faculty, I think, are going to chime in on that as well. Dentist for Della is an organization for those of you who wants to do public health and geriatric dentistry. Some of our students that aren't part of the organization still participate in that. And Dr. Messer could tell you more about it, but you got the Dental Research Society. And so those are students that are very passionate about research. And don't think if you're not doing research at your undergraduate campus that you may not be interested. Maybe you haven't had a reason to be interested, but now that you guys are dedicating the next 20 or 30 years, maybe you want to be part of this innovative things that's going on in the future in dentistry. And to the left here are just some of the different things that our students get involved with. So you do the oral cancer walk, they have people come out and do testimonies, and then it's supposed to be a run, but if you're anywhere like me and Dr. Messer, we're barely walking. So we'll be in there in the number, but we're not going too far. Lessons in a lunchbox. They have a kit, and it's a big bright orange lunchbox, and they have all the kits in there to know how to properly floss and just to educate them. So some of our organization would take that lesson in a lunchbox to a pre-K or first grader just to teach so how just the oral health care education can go on. And so who are those people that are making them great clinicians? They are our 81 full-time, and as you can see, many, many more and hundreds of volunteer faculty. And a lot of these are people that are graduates or alumni of this school. And who makes up these 81 full-time? They're diverse within themselves. You have like Dr. Macker here, who's retired 100 times and just can't get away, just keeps coming back. You have Dr. Sword here in the middle, who's an alumni. She's one of the younger ones who just knew academic was her calling, and so she's very passionate about it. She's kind of overseeing those that want to come into academia. Then you have Dr. Maurice Lewis here. He's a veteran. So he practiced that way. He went to college, and he's from another region of the country. So he loves to tell stories. So the students know they're going to get a great story and a great lesson on what it is, whatever question that they ask. So you just got to find your person within our faculty members and determine who's going to be more helpful to you. But as you can see, many of them have been in private practice. Some of them have worked in public health. And so the variety that they bring, we also have adjunct faculty. So these are people that are in private practice who understands giving back means let me give back to the place from which I've learned my education. So oftentimes they may come over 1 or 2 days a month just to sit in an adjunct and help our full-time faculty out with the current matriculating students.
I will add that of those 81, 41 of those are specialists. So we have 8 residency programs here. And so those individuals also teach in their pre-clinic or pre-doctoral clinic. So you get people who've been in private practice and you get specialists here in one building.
Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but we just want to know everybody's asked, how you doing? How are you doing this pandemic? We've gotten some verbiage today. We hope we're getting out of some masks in some areas as of today. And right before we logged on here, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to wash my hands, mask or no mask. So I masked up because that's what we're used to doing, but we're still preparing. We have a freshman, an incoming D1 class that orientation starts on June 29th, 30th, somewhere toward the end of the month. And as part of their kit, you got to have the right kit, you got to have the right computer, and let's get you fitted for your N95 kits. That's just part of it. So that's the new norm. We, as employees of the school, are not allowed to use the front elevators. Those are for patients. You see this photograph with the camera protruding down. That makes sure they have on a mask. Anyone who enters the building, it takes their temperature as well. That information is shot up to the 5th floor where we live. And let us know, hey, you got a bad person in the building who's not doing right. So we just want to make sure that our students are safe, that we as faculty and staff are safe, and want to make sure that each of our patients are safe. So we got a lot of disposable things. We have a lot of our current freshmen had a hybrid curriculum. So they, do a lot of their didactic work from home. But as you can see, these are our D1s on this photograph that's here, and they're close in proximity when it comes to the simulation lab. So we've been safe. Mostly everybody in the building has been vaccinated. And we were lucky, not lucky, but I think we were all done maybe in a January, early February. So we were just getting ourselves back so we can get more patients in the building. In the past, our students have treated over 32,000 patients. And of course, we didn't get anywhere near that this year due to the pandemic and due to us closing down. So we're working hard to see if we can get back to some normal numbers for us. All right, I'm going to let Dr. Messer, because she's one of the mean people who makes these wonderful students go through this curriculum, but just kind of explain. Oftentimes we get the question, can I work and go to dental school? And that's when she can go and tell you that dental school is your job. So she can explain to you from right here what all this new job entails.
Yeah, so it is a job in itself. We can say this over and over again, but until you are here and living it, it just doesn't seem real. So you are in class pretty much 8 to 5 every day, except for Wednesday afternoons. Most Wednesday afternoons are available for doctor's appointments, car maintenance, etc., things you have to do. But you're in class pretty much the entire time. And that means you have to study and do extra work and practices outside of that 40 hours. So so you start taking, it says 37 hours your first semester, and it's fast paced. It may not, in some areas, not be quite as detailed, but a lot of it's new information. And so cramming does not work in dental school. So, start working now on reviewing things as you go along and keeping up with your work, because it's so much information. A lot of people will call it drinking from our fire hose. You'll hear that a lot at different schools and during interview process, because it is. It's just a ton of information. So this is true. So you're mainly in didactic classes your freshman year. You have some pre-clinic classes like Ms. Perry was talking about. You transition to more clinical type things in your sophomore year. You get to start with patients. And then in junior year, you're still having didactic classes, pharmacology, except, but as you're transitioning more and more and more into the clinic.
Okay, Dr. Messer, I want to interrupt you, but I know you're saying things that's on the next slide. So if we could forward the slide, just keep.
Oh, sorry.
And then you don't have to make, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, and what do we cover? Okay, so I'll go over all these. And so what we've done is we've taken the curriculum, and we were for several years in a 3-semester system, and now we're in a 2-semester system. That does not mean that every course lasts all 22 weeks. Some of them are modulated, so some of them last 6 weeks, some of them last 8 weeks, some of them do last 22 weeks. And so just because you have this huge long list of courses doesn't mean you're going to have them every week. So we try to divide it up. A lot of the basic sciences, the foundation courses, not only do you need to know the foundations information like, say, biochem, how pH works. You need to be able to apply it. And so we look at scenarios about how medications work, because that's where pHs and pKs come involved, and excuse me, as you try to treat your patient. So we add those things to it. We have a class on here starting your spring semester called Bioclinical Seminars. So I'm trying to find it down through there somewhere. And you have them all 4 years, and it's taking that knowledge. The whole idea is using evidence-based dentistry and taking that knowledge and looking up information to help treat the patient better, to help investigate and learn what you need to know for that. So that we have that all 4 years. Something new in the, or modified in the new curriculum. We've always had ethics, we've always had business in the curriculum, but we have combined them and added several things to make it more of a professionalism. And we're going to actually change the name. Of course, you have to wait a year to change the name, but the Business Ethics Foundation, we go over the ADA core values of what it is to be a dentist, and give you scenarios. But we also start out with the wellness of the individual. So we apply those core values, justice, veracity, non-maleficence, to you. So we give you DISC analysis and values index and emotional intelligence index. We have suicide prevention training, wellness training, things that you're going to need for yourself, your staff, and your peers as you go through. And it's what you make of it. And so we're very excited about it. As we move through the curriculum, we add more and more business. We have a couple of dentists that have their MBAs and DBAs that help teach in that course. And like Ms. Perry said, there's several people who've had private practices for 20 years plus that are teaching in this course. And so they know a little bit about running a business. And so they come in and they talk about what needs to be in an office manual. And so the conflict management styles that I've introduced in your freshman year, they reintroduce about how to deal with a difficult patient, how to deal with a difficult staff. And so we build on it and build on it. And we talk about jurisprudence and the legal issues that you might run into and how we do it. And so that course is woven through all 4 years. So between the bioclinical seminars, all 4 years, the ethics courses, all 4 years, and then you have a way to integrate everything between the basic sciences and clinical sciences is important, because that's what the boards have went to. So instead of having 2 parts of the boards now, where you had a basic science and you took out your 2 years, and then a clinical science, you have one big one that you'll probably take the fall of your senior year. And that has approximately 380 multiple choice questions about ethics and about biochemistry and about pharmacology. And then they have about 140 of these clinical based questions, kind of like what we do in bioclinical seminar. Here's a radiograph. You tell me what's wrong. If this is what's wrong, what are you going to do about it? And what are the complications you're going to have to deal with? So we've tried to set up the curriculum. I guess you go to the next slide, because it's sophomore year. Next slide. Yeah. So some of these more clinical aspects will be in those. You know, should I do a partial versus a total denture? Should I do this versus that? Based on the clinical data they give you in these scenarios. So as we mentioned earlier, so it's more lab and clinic in your sophomore year. So it's about 30 to 70%. Next slide. And then 60% clinic. So you're getting more and more in the clinic. You get to see your own patients. You get to have, start your mannequin ADEX, your first round of boards, your junior year. Next. And then mainly in the clinic, except for the ethics and bioclinical seminars, pretty much in your senior year. So you do have you have these practices. One thing that's mentioned on here is the externships. And we do expect, and hopefully we're going to be back starting this fall, because COVID kind of put a kibosh on being able to go out to the extern site to do these rotations. Usually pre-COVID, we would have 4 2-week rotations throughout the state of Georgia. Again, we're very lucky. You know, a lot of state institutions get very little from the state, and we get over half our budget from the state. And so giving back is very.
The next slide. It's a slide with it. It could show.
Oh, sorry. giving back to the state of Georgia is very important. And I will put a plug in here about being a professional, and hopefully everybody who's listening to this is thinking about this as they choose dentistry as their path. That course that I was mentioning where we talk about professionalism, the thing that makes healthcare and some other professions as well, professions, is that it is a skill set that no one else has. It is a giving back to society. Being a professional, by definition, if you look at the root word, means a vow to society. And so we take that very seriously, about that heart of service. And so giving back to the state of Georgia through these clerkships not only helps the individuals who may not have access to health care, but it also broadens your horizons as far as being aware of situations and et cetera. One of the things we've added to the curriculum is doing a poverty simulation, because again, being aware of situation, being able to put yourself in that situation a little bit will help you be a better clinician. So I'm trying to think what else I need to say. Because I on a couple slides ago, it mentioned the ratios in the junior clinic. I want to talk about just for a second that there is the boards, and that there are two parts of the boards. You take the mannequin part in the junior year, and then your senior licensing exam that the board will take. So when I say boards, there's two. There's the test, and then there's a licensing test, and so there's two different sets that you need to take. And again, we prepare you pretty well for those, because their success rate is pretty good.
I wanted to, before we leave here, I wanted to add, and Dr. Messer did an eloquent job speaking about, what is the hiccup for each year, because each class has their stressors. It's during the D3 year when you get 2-week rotations through all of the specializations. And the next slide, we'll talk about the specializations that are offered here at DCG. And so when you get to this senior year, we want to make sure that in addition to seeing what we see as normal specializations, we want to make sure that you've had your fear of public health. Because some people say, well, I just want to go into private practice, but some people are passionate strictly about public health. Some people come to us with bachelor's and master's in public health. And so this is 8 weeks. There are 4 2-week rotations, and I do know that they are starting at the beginning of July. So yeah. Great for Ms. Hunt-Bass for getting that back on track. I think we used to have 30 different sites. I think the sites may be up to 20 now, because a lot of them closed, some of them didn't reopen. And it gives our students the opportunity to go out and do public health type dentistry for people who indigent and can't pay. And they're working side by side with general dentists who have probably left their office for that day. And so it just gives you a feel for a different way that you can give back. So this sometimes is factored into the decision. Am I going to be an orthodontist? Am I going to be a general dentist? Am I going to have a big plush office? Or am I going to have a plush office and do public health at the same time? But we as DCG want to make sure that we gave our students that exposure in their moving forward. Next slide. All right, since you guys are not Georgia, we just want to show. And what this means for us is even in our 159 counties in the state of Georgia, some are okay. The ones that are in gray means we have enough dentists per 10,000 population. The ones that are in yellow means there's a pretty population within that county. Maybe it's a poor county on the west side of that. So there are pockets of communities that have a dental health professional shortage area. The ones that are peach, meaning the entire county is considered dental health professional shortage area. And then the ones that are green, meaning you're like, hey, that's right, Atlanta. And that's because they have a facility. In Atlanta, they have a Ben Massell clinic, dental clinic, that has 10,000 to 20,000 patients that rotate through. And that's why it's considered, because of the census of many of patients, dental patients that come through. But I'm having said all that because our students look at that and say, where is their need for me? So we often share this map so they can know where there's a need for them to go back to once they leave DCG.
Yeah.
Now, here's the residencies. And I think we're in a good place because there's a lot of dental schools that only have no residency programs or 1 or 2. All the ones that are in white, we have here at DCG. The ones that are in red are residency programs, but unfortunately we do not have those. But we're fortunate enough to have a GPR as well as an AEGD. Some dental schools only have one or the other. Now, it's very challenging and difficult, you got to be a competitive applicant to get into a DMD or DDS program, is even that much more challenging when you're looking at these residency programs. So you see the program to the left, you see the additional years of training that you have to the right. And then you got to look at how many students or new dentists do they accept into the programs. For instance, our GPR, they accept 9 students per year. The AEGD accepts 4. The endodontics, for those of you who want to be root canalist, is that a word? Accepts 2 per year. Pediatric takes 2. Pediatric, periodontists, and prosthodontists all take 4. And then there's ortho, which takes 2. And then on the opposite year, it takes 3. So you're like, what's the big difference? I know if you're that one person and you're glad that they take 2 on 3 on the opposite year. Then there's our oral surgery program. Remember, we had an oral surgery interest group, so it's a lot of them. They take 2 students per year and 1 intern. And even the good thing about that is we have students that aren't accepted to be in that program, oftentimes get accepted to Ivy League schools in their oral surgery program. So we're proud of that because you're not only good to remain at DCG, you're good to go to other dental schools that we may deem that are as good as or maybe even better. And I say that lightly, not to mean or better.
And I'll also add, if you want to do oral surgery, we also have a program with the med school where you can go ahead and get your MD as well while on top of that. So that's a 6-year program.
And before we leave here, I know Dr. Messer alluded to it just a little bit, but we do also have a concurrent DMD MBA program. So we have a few students who are brave enough to do that. And what that do is you have to finish your first year of dental school to 3.25. And then you maintain that, then you can add on these MBA courses. You can't substitute them. You still got to be with your cohort of students and do everything for the DMD degree during your sophomore, junior, and senior year. But in addition to that, on at night, on the weekends, on Fridays, you're doing MBA business courses. And at the end of the day, when you're done at the end of 4 years, you receive your Doctor of Dental Medicine as well as your MBA. And so if you finish on time, then the MBA is actually free of charge. So that's just another good tricklet of joy that I just want to share with you guys.
And it is 30 semester hours. So it's additional 30 hours of coursework.
So what should you be doing now? You guys have already chosen a great college, and we don't care where you go to school. We just need you to get the majority, at least 85 credit hours of undergrad from a U.S. accredited school. Okay, we don't really care what your major is, but you do have to have a good science foundation. So if you say, I'm going to major in basket weaving, that is fine. But there are some prerequisites that you have to have. So you can't take fun electives. You got to take some hardcore sciences because many of the people applying with you are going to be biology majors, other science majors, masters and PhDs and so they're going to have a good science foundation. So you must too as well. If you have the opportunity to be a part of an enrichment program, like a SHPEP program or a SEAP program that we have at DCG, or any type of thing like that, maybe it's a research, like we have a STAR program here as well. So anything that's usually described as you going away for the summer, and it's like a 5 or 6 or 7 week or 10 week, and sometimes they're 1 week program. I even look at like study abroad. This is me. I've walked away from my institution. I went off to learn something else. To me, we look at all of that is taken into consideration. And then from where you are, especially those of you that are getting ready to apply right now, make sure you've established a good rapport with these advisors. They're not just helping you maneuver through your curriculum in undergrad. They're also going to be people who we're going to believe their letters, who are going to say, okay, Gabrielle is going to be a good science student at DCG because she's a good science student here at our institution. Okay, so, and then research your schools. We talked about that a little earlier. You know, you can't just tour school because most schools aren't allowing it right now. Go online, meet some people there through studentdoctor.net so they can talk great things about their schools. You got to know, how do you narrow down 67 schools to the ones you realistically can see yourself at. Next slide. Okay, this is self-explanatory, and this is about our current freshmen. And Dr. Messer and I kind of pinpoint and put in the new stats for the new people, which is kind of in stone. I mean, it's not in stone until orientation. We can tell you that. We've had some changes as of last week. And so even in the pandemic, our application pool went up to, what was it, 861? Our still class size is still going to be 96. And so for you guys that's out of state, as you can see, because we're a state school, we can only accept up to 10% for us. That is 9 people that are non-Georgia residents. And as you can see, the majority of our applications are from out of state. So how do we decipher through, I think it was 560 out-of-state applicants, give or take or two, and we narrow that down. We only conducted this cycle that's coming in 216 interviews. So 861 applications, 216 interviews, and of those 216, maybe 50, 51-ish were out of states. So how do I get an interview at DCG if I'm from out of state? You call, you have a conversation with us. We do it all day, every day, and we make good notes about. We just don't want a person to just put, oh, there's Georgia, and just check us. We want somebody who has a genuine interest, who's watched this video. Anybody who watched this video probably got a genuine interest in us. We may know somebody. We could talk about it. Where I've never been there, I used to live there, or I moved to Florida, but I was only gone 2 years, or whatever the case may be. Our stats have dropped a little, not much. The overall GPA now is a 3.60. The science is a 3.54.
I think so.
Somewhere in there. It could change tomorrow. We just hang in there. The academic average and the PAT for the perceptibility are both a 21 right now. We finally got a few more males in. So there's a few more males coming in the freshman class, and then the females kind of went down. We've always had a diverse class, and we're just continuing to do that. So those are some stats on the incoming class compared to these that you see that are our current freshmen that are about to be D2s. This is quickly because I know you guys can read, but each school, and you need to check, if you're interested in 5 schools, you need to check with what are the prerequisites for each of those 5 schools because they vary. For instance, you can see here, we would prefer Principles of Biology 1 and 2. All schools, that may not be what it's called. So check with each school and say, hey, this is what I'm taking. Does this suffice? Then we want you to have General Chemistry 1 and 2. We also want you to have Organic 1. And then we require you to have biochemistry. However, I promise you, every other dental school probably wants you to have Organic 1 and Organic 2. And when you take the DAT, I'm pretty sure that they weren't forgiving this DCG and allowing, we're just going to skip over the Organic 2 part, So be prepared to take Organic 1, Organic 2, and biochemistry to best prepare yourself. DCG, only requires Physics 1. Yes, it can be the trigonometry base, which is usually introductory to Physics 1 and its lab. Almost every other dental school requires Physics 1 as well as Physics 2. And we need a year of English, whatever your school allows you to graduate with, that's sufficient for us. And then there's some recommended courses as well. So whether you major in basket weaving or whatever you chose or business, these courses have to be taken. I'll let Dr. Messer talk about this because she works very closely with subcommittee A, and we got another slide that explains who A and B are. But when we use the word non-cognitive, what does that mean to the people that are reviewing your application to determine if you get one of those interview slots?
So when those applications are verified, and that's something else to keep track of. Once you hit submit, it has to be complete and reviewed and verified by ADSES before we review it. Okay, so keep an eye on that verified date. Once it's verified, I read every application. And in states, out of states, if they have a connection, if they have the scores, they meet our minimums, they have our prereqs, I send it forward to sub A. And the things we look for is that community involvement. Again, how can we hope you will be that giving professional if you aren't giving now, if you don't have that heart evident now. And so we look for community involvement, and we look for a track record of that, not just I've checked the box. And the minimum to get by, how many hours do I need? If that's the question you're asking, probably not so much. You need to have that track record, and it varies because, again, we look at a holistic approach. If you're in school right now and you're working 2 jobs to pay for your living expenses, you don't have time to be president or whatever of whatever organization. We take that into consideration. because that's life experience. That's more than. And so we balance that first column, the community involvement, with some of the work experience, some of the life experiences. And so we feel like that's a good way to balance the non-cognitives. We do look for a track record of good grades, but we also look for that trend to go up. So it's the whole person is what I'm trying to say. So extracurriculars, community involvement, work experience, life experiences. I always say I've interviewed people from people who have had to live in their car because they're homeless, to people who have worked 3 jobs to put themselves through school, who served 4 tours in the military, and to those who've been blessed and not had to do those things. And so again, it's that well-rounded individual that we're looking for. And because we spend so much time going over the applications and really delving into the personal statement and the why DCGs and the why, it gives us that class that has that family feel, I think. And I always joke, you're going to have 96 brothers and sisters, and you're going to know more about 96 people than you ever cared to know about 96 people. But when you're meeting somebody, you want these things in that individual, right? You want somebody to have a wide variety of giving back and caring evident in their military. So I mentioned the late on here under second column, late bloomer at the bottom. That's why we're talking about that upward trend. Not everybody goes into school knowing what they want to do in gangbusters, and there's an adjustment period. We get that. It happens. And we don't want to hold that against them. So we do look for an upward trend for those individuals. We look for what clubs you've been involved with. We look for how many hours you've done that. On here it says dental experience, 300 hours shadowing. Our average is way higher than that. But you've also got to understand that those are people who have been dental assistants or dental hygienists for years prior to applying. Well, that skews that average quite a bit. Now, how many should you have? Enough. 300 is about average. 150, is getting there. But we want you to know what you're getting into as well as you can at this point. Until you do it, you really don't know. Until you put your fingers in somebody's mouth, you might not know. But the idea is for you to understand what it takes to be a dentist and to shadow different offices. So not only do you know what that one person's office was like, because your office will not be like that one. Even if you went to that exact same office as an associate later, just your personality is going to change that dynamic somewhat. And so the whole idea is for you to know what you're getting into. And so it's good to shadow various general dentists. If you can get some specialists, that's great. We know in the COVID world, it's kind of hard to get shadowing experiences. We get that. I'll let Ms. Perry talk a little bit about some of the stuff Adia's talked about and the virtual hours. Hands-on dental lab counts, and that shows manual dexterity because you're working with your hands in the lab on dental stuff. Mission trips, again, that caring individual. Anything else, Ms. Perry?
Yeah, you brought up about virtual shadowing, and that has been a hot button topic for Adia as we meet regularly to see how forgiving we're going to be in the midst of the pandemic. But from what I understand, this year's application, they have a button, a tab that says shadowing, dental shadowing. And so you would put in if you've done 5 hours or 10 hours or 300 hours. Then on the side of that, they have one that says virtual shadowing. That depends on the school. Some schools argue that virtual shadowing has nothing to do with real shadowing, so they're not accepting of it. We have offered that we will accept up to 25 hours, which is a very small percentage of our 300 hours. And we want you to go to the dental shadowers, and I know you guys got some things that are already set up, but we want it to be you at least watching procedures and not just watching a dentist talk about their experience. Because we just figure like, if you listen to us right now, that's not shadowing, that's just listening to Dr. Messer and I jabber on about how to get in or how not to get in. But we want you to see as much as close to procedures as possible. So if you guys have something set up, then that's great. But for us, up to 25 hours. For some schools where 50 hours is their minimum, they're not going to take 25 hours. So again, check with your schools. But yeah, then they have a separate category that says other dental experiences. And that could be Hey, I worked in a dental lab. Hey, I've gone on a mission trip. Or now there's another tab that says employment. So let's say maybe you volunteered at a dentist's office and you were doing assisting, or you were x-ray tech. That's other dental experiences. It's bigger than shadowing, but it doesn't go in the category that says employment. So now they've offered you a job, and now you've been working there 20 hours a week. So we know to go in all those different places, and all that tallies up to that 300 hours. So it's really not hard if you're engaged in what's going on, but we get it. We've talked with some students who are, this year is much better than last year. It was just a hot mess last year as people scrambled, offices closed, and we're like, oh, well, you're 300 hours. And so there are people that come to school with 150 just based on, we know you got what you could get. So that's it in reference to that. So just continue to do that. And if you're not Georgia and you're going to a place that's not that demanding, you're probably in a better shape than what you think you are. Next slide. Okay, quickly, Dr. Messer is the keeper of all this. However, she works very closely with Subcommittee A, and Subcommittee A is a small portion of our entire committee of about 30 plus people who decides who gets an interview. They look at all eight, well, she looks at all of them, and sometimes those that are worthy get past that 861, and then Subcommittee A starts to review them. And this is kind of like what I was telling you, like who got interviews, how many in-state, how many out-of-state. Then we started our interviews, and of course, this past year we did them virtually. We're still talking about moving forward. We're doing them in person this cycle, and so last year our interviews started virtually on August the 17th, and so we did maybe 19 dates of interviews, and usually did about 10 to 14 each time. And we were done. We were done interviewing before Thanksgiving. So before we left to go out and have some turkey, we were done talking to students for the next cycle. And we interviewed rigorously on Mondays and Fridays, some Mondays and Fridays. And then we had meetings after we talked to maybe 36 students, maybe 3 sessions of interviews. We had these long meetings, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, to make a determination as to what to do with this student provisionally. And we have some students that are part of the whole process. So who better to know that you're could be a good colleague, but the people that are in your shoes, not so long ago. So we develop a program with student ambassadors, and these are students that have nothing to do with the admissions process. And once you've been granted your interview, then all of a sudden, if you give us permission, here comes this student who's in the middle of it to call you to see if you got any questions about anything that you're getting ready to embark upon, meaning the application process. Now that it's time for the application process, we have a meet and greet that you will have the night before your actual interview day. And who are those people? Those are up to 9 of our dental students that do serve on the admissions committee. And so they're there to make things comfortable before you get with us old people the next day. But they're also just trying to gauge, is this a, good person? Is she nice? Could she be empathetic and that sort of thing? Then once you come in the next day, suited and booted, professional wear, 8 o'clock you're here before. Parking is going to be a monster. We'll figure it all out. Then you'll spend a lot of time with Dr. Messer, and then you have 2 one-on-one 30-minute interviews. And we're going to go into the next slide to see who some of those people may be in the interviews. Maybe I cut some stuff out. But anyway, let me tell you, we have interviewers, and some of them are faculty that will be teaching you along the way. Some of them are a few directors, including myself. Some about public health. Some of those people are alumni who serve, was here not too long ago, and they, bless their hearts. They've often left people in the chair, patients, so they can come and be a part of the admissions process. But at that time, okay, go back. I feel like it's a slide. Maybe not. Okay, I'm sorry. Go back again. No, not. Okay. But anyway, we make a decision. We try to inform everybody before Christmas. Last year, we informed the draft day. That's what I like to call it. Had been moved to December the 15th, but it's been a ruling. They moved it back to the 1st. We're debating, hey, we like the 15th, but they just asked us to vote last week. So for this process, for those of you that are applying this current cycle, this new cycle, December 1 is the day that schools can be on the phone and making you offers. And so Dr. Messer and I'll be right in there making phone calls and offers. However, if you don't get the call on December 1, don't get mad. We just made an offer last week. So until, orientation, nothing is in stone. But just check and make sure that you've got what you need, because it can be pricey. The DAT, you have study prep material that can run anywhere from $250 to $1,800 to $2,000. For those of you who English is not your first language, you have to check and see if you need to take the TOEFL. Work on these personal statements. Remember who your audience is. They are dental school administrators. So don't talk 2 out of 3 paragraphs about how you want to be a physician and, oh yeah, now I want to be a dentist, because now we're turned off. And know your deadlines. Our deadline is September the 30th. Don't call us on October 15th and say, oh, no, that's another school. So now you've missed it. Yeah. You have to go through ADIA to do the ADSAS application. The soft launch has already happened. No one can submit until June 1. And then you got to make sure how long you got. And this is my thing about it is Dr. Messer and I and the subcommittees and the big committee, we're pretty warm and fuzzy all of June, all of July, most of August, because we know summer is significant. You may be doing an internship, you may be in summer school, but you one of these September people, you better have a really good reason for waiting. Because what's so better about the September people than the June, July, and August people? Because we're getting very selective at that point. Interviews are going down. So there's a lot of great people who've waited, who unfortunately don't get an interview only because you've kind of waited till we only have a few interview spots in there. So if you're waiting, make sure you're waiting strategically for a very good reason. Make sure that you've requested all the transcript, which all colleges that you've attended, because you submit your application. If they don't have all your transcripts, then we don't ever get to see your application. It's just kind of hanging out there in the cloud, waiting on you to get out. And so some people, unfortunately, the process is over. And they like, well, did you look? No, sir, no, ma'am, we never got it because it was never verified by ADIA. And so do your mock interviews. Of those 216 people who we interview, the class size is only 96. So some people are attractive and excellent on paper. However, they get here, they're nervous, they're abrasive, they're talking too much, they're not talking at all, they're crying, and a lot goes on. And so we still have to eliminate half of those people based on their good or bad or poor performance with interacting with us, interacting with our students, and interviewing. And then you just go home. So we interview up until November, and we don't make you wait too long. Now, if you're one of those August people, you do have to wait a little longer. And then we, like I say, you do the contact and we let you know where you stand. We let you know before Christmas break if you're accepted, if you're on our wait list, in-state wait list or out-of-state wait list, or if you've been not accepted to any of those. And there's a place on the application that asks about, have you done any bad things? Please be truthful with us on your ADIA ADSAS application, because if you don't, then once you've accepted, a criminal background check is done. And so we do not want to be surprised in that instance. Next slide. And that's it. So for those of you that got any further questions, you can email us or contact our office. You can set up an advisement or appointment so you can have any individual questions for myself or Dr. Messer, especially if you're out of state, because we got to get you on our radar. Otherwise, you may get lost in the pack of 800 people and none of them really want to come here. So thank you. That's all I wanted to add. And Dr. Messer, did you want to add something?
No, I will say that we are planning on doing, like Ms. Perry said, live interviews. We may do a couple of virtual ones for out-of-state individuals. That we interviewed people in Hawaii and Utah and California this year that we may keep that up, but we'll let you know for sure.
Okay, thank you guys so much for the presentation. We did have a couple of questions. I'm gonna go through and ask a couple, but I of course don't want to keep us forever. So the first question from our Instagram, how does the diagonal curriculum differ from a traditional curriculum as far as the rigor level?
So the rigor is still pretty tough, I will say. Now, having said that, when I took biochem in undergrad and in grad school, they handed you a piece of paper and told you to draw off the TCA cycle, all the structures, all the rate limiting steps, and all the enzymes. We don't do that. Okay, we want you to know the rate limiting steps. We want to know you to know where drugs interact with that. It's not as detailed as structures and et cetera on that level, but it is still very rigorous because of the load. So in our Foundations 1 course, for example, we go through proteins, pH, pKs, hemoglobin, collagen synthesis, structural proteins, enzymes in the first 2 weeks, and you're in class 4 times. So it's fast paced. And so the rigor is pretty tough. Now for the diagonal part is getting into the clinic early and it growing. I hope that answered the question, but it is something to get used to.
Mm-hmm. For the next question, for someone coming into dental school, what is the best way to prepare yourself the summer or a gap year before entering?
I would say you get multiple answers. And I think, if you ask our students, you would probably get 5 or 6 answers immediately. Some are going to say, go on vacation because you're never going to get one again. Some are going to say, do a summer program because I took a gap year and I want to make sure that I can handle the didactic, the rigor. So I'm going to do a summer program and get ready for that. Some of them will say, I'm just going to work because I think I need to save money because dental school can be costly. Some are going to say, I'm going to work in some of them get a job that's in dental and some of them get a job that's not dental related. And some of them, we have people who've gone to Europe and they're doing hiking trips all over the Appalachian Mountains. So it's kind of like, what do you choose to do? I don't think there's any right answer with that. I think it depends on the individual.
It does.
Okay. For the next question, someone asked, is it acceptable to have letters of recommendation from TAs because of the effects of the pandemic?
If it's I would hope they would have another additional letter from an academic person besides just a TA. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, were they a TA in that lab and they were their supervisor? Then possibly. I mean, that'd be a great letter because you worked for them and it's a science person too. Mm-hmm. So we require 4, a dental, an academic, a personal, and then the 4th one. So it kind of depends on what the other ones are. I hate to say it depends, but it kind of depends on what the situation is.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. For the next question, how are statistics looked at in a personal statement? Do I need citations and what type of formatting, i.e. APA, MLA formatting?
Personal statements just where you are at. And so no AP, no citations. I'm trying to think what you would reference in one. I guess if you're saying that state of Georgia needs more dentists and you want to quote that would be a citation, but you wouldn't have to put that in there. Mm-hmm. Format, I'm going to let Ms. Perry. Ms. Perry has a good little, I won't say formula, but her paragraph 1, paragraph 2 speech.
Yeah, I kind of am looking for, and we've seen students who have done well on the DAT and they got 4.0 GPAs and we like, you know what? I don't see passion of dentistry in this personal statement. So we need to see that. In fact, I just read one and it was very eloquently written and it was all about how they pursued medicine and then somewhere along the medicine they discovered dentistry. And it was great, but I felt like it was too much dedicated to you talking about medicine. And you got to remember who your audience is. So I'm turned off as a dental school person. Like, you need to get rid of some of that and get to the point fast and then talk about your newly found love for dentistry. It's kind of like dating. You got to look at it. So you just date. Clearly, once you find the one that you're going to marry, we want to talk all about that marriage. We don't want to hear about all the dating process that you went through. Now, me, when I'm looking, I kind of like to know a little bit of background about the person. And so that gives me a little, hey, my name is Stephanie Perry. I'm a military brat, or I'm the oldest of 10, or I'm an only child, or I'm adopted, or I was raised by, beavers in a hut, So now I kind of know, okay, this is why she's the way that she is, or he's the way that he is. Then you get into the paragraph about what happened that got you interested in dentistry in the first place. Some of you wanted to be dentist since you were 12, and some of you just kind of stumbled upon it. Oh my gosh, this is what I should be doing. And it could have happened to you. It could have happened with a family member. It could have just been, just kind of fell into it. And then what steps you took to make yourself a competitive applicant. So now we're looking at for the empathy, the non-cognitive things, you around dentistry and finding, yep, this is exactly what I should be doing. And this is where I was and what was happening when I discovered it. And then why would you be a good asset to a dental school class? You know, why would those students that's been mingling with you at the interview, why would they say, you know what, I would want to sit by? And we've been in places where somebody looks great on paper, but they just did not gel with the nice, wonderful family that we already got here, just because they were too abrasive or interrupting the entire time. You know, so if you can't control yourself, nobody wants to be bothered with that. And you guys have options, but then so do dental schools as well. And then what is your plan? We know that the plan isn't in stone. You're going to change your mind 100 times. You may say, I had an orthodontist and my teeth were crooked and they made them straight. Then I was Miss Heidi Two Shoes after that. So yes, I'm going to be an orthodontist. And then as you rotate through the residencies, you could change your mind and say, clearly, I want to be an endodontist after all of that. And so you kind of, at least you got a plan, you know, this showed us that you've thought it out. And even if you change it, you kind of saw where was your calling as you entered the profession. And by the time you write that in no particular format, but good English, good full complete sentences, you got 4,500 characters, usually about a page and a half to do that. And don't waste a lot of time talking about listing all your extracurriculars. There's a place for that. We saw that. So we don't need you to just put a bunch of fluff. We don't need to see it twice in that. But if you were, you know, been involved with Special Olympics, you've done 7 other things, but I really want to talk about my role with Special Olympics because I'm passionate about that. And maybe I get a residency where I work with kids with special needs or adults with special needs. Now it all ties together. It all makes sense in that sense. But just an itemized list that's already posted on the application. We're not interested in reading things like that twice. So,
yeah, and I'm going to add that don't make it fluffy. That's absolutely true. We want it to be genuine. We want you on the paper, okay? And so if it seems too formulated, too rigid, it's not going to be attractive as far as an application is concerned. The other thing is, and I'm going to say it, and I know no one listening to this would actually do this. However, I have been on admissions committees, not only for the dental school, but for the graduate programs here for 20 years. And you would not believe the number of people who plagiarize their personal statement. And so just don't. And there's ways for us to check that if we suspect something's kind of fishy. I will look. And so just don't.
And even not going that far, please, outside of the personal statement, please be able to validate all of the content that you put on your application. Myself as an interviewer, 7 out of 9 of the questions that I ask are from stuff that you put on your application. And so I can see, oh my gosh, you shadowed with Dr. John. I know him. And you've been shadowing him for 18 months. Tell me about an experience that really was, you know, just astounding to you. And now the look on your face lets me know you don't even know Dr. Johnson. So now I'm questioning this whole application. And so at the end of the day, your 2 interviewers are the people that have to present you to the entire committee to say, yes, we would just lose if this person walked away, or please let them go far, far away. So if they're not trusting the validity of what you put on the application, you got to make sure that you're passionate and you can explain and you can expound. It's nothing like, well, Dr. Messer, I see that you shadowed Ms. Johnson. Is that right? And if she just goes, yes, I want her to be like, oh my gosh, yes. And just really go into, everybody's not as animated as me, but she'll go in. I know that she's passionate about it. She can't explain, because that's what she goes through in 30 minutes. Tell me why she needs to be accepted and why she needs to be here in spite of others.
And that's true for extracurricular activities, you're volunteering. You know, I could pick one at random. Tell me about when you built the house for Habitat for Humanity and you look like a deer in headlights. That's a problem.
When you say you spent 1,200 hours with Habitat for Humanity. Now, if you've done 1 hour and just put some nails out, then we don't expect you to have but support what it is that you put on your application.
I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions from our Instagram. I think I'm gonna go with this for our last question. Is it a good idea to have a specialty already in mind and present that in your application?
You can, but we know it's going to change. I mean, I've interviewed so many people who walk in the office and go, I'm going to be an orthodontist. And they are not an orthodontist today. And that's okay. But know this, no matter if you think you want to do whatever specialty it is, you have to be a general dentist first. You're going to have to get through a general dentist curriculum first. And so it's a stepping stone, and you need to be aware of that first and present that you want to be a dentist, because A, what if you change your mind? And B, what if you don't get into that specialty?
Exactly. I guess those that are concerning are people that are working as ortho assistants or or surgery office as assistants. And so they may not, and that's all they see. So they're impressed with that. But the bottom line is you may not ever get accepted to a specialty. The last thing we want you here is in our curriculum, not knowing what general dentistry is, because you may just have to be a general dentist. You may love it, you may not like it, but until you get accepted, we don't want you to be, well, I don't even know what that is, and sad and disgruntled and taking a spot and thinking about dropping out. We have a great retention rate, and we want to keep that, and we don't. And that's why the 300 hours. So we hope that the majority of your time in shadowing exposure is with the general dentist, because we at least know you're at least going to be that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys so much. If you had any last words to our audience, feel free to share that now. But otherwise, that's all that we have for today, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Messer and Ms. Perry, for your time today. We appreciate it here at Fresh Dental Shadowing. And for anyone that is interested in DCG, feel free to contact admissions. If you have any other questions, their email and phone number is provided. And we'll see you guys at our next session.